This podcast is sponsored by Durham Sports. Durham Sports is a crypto project connecting sports and entertainment with cryptocurrency. Durham has sponsored over 80 minor league baseball players to date. Some of them have been on this podcast and is now branching out to other sports. Durham Sports aspires to be the cryptocurrency synonymous with sports sponsorship. Not only are they assisting athletes in their profession, they are also providing an opportunity for investment. By purchasing the RBI token on Uniswap, you can invest in their mission of helping athletes around the world. Check them out at durhamenu.com and purchase the RBI token today. I am excited for my guest today, one of the founders of More Than Baseball, drafted by the Rays back in 2018 out of Harvard. Some may say the pride of Wisconsin, the pride of Madison, Wisconsin. Simon Rosenblum-Larson, how's it going, brother?
Good, man. Great to be on. Thank you.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, I had no idea you were from Madison, which is incredible. I did the math. I looked at it. I worked like 3 minutes from the school you played at. So that's incredible that you play here in Madison at West.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm a down home Wisconsinite at heart. So loved it there. Really a good place to grow up and a great place to, learn how to be a ball player in cold weather. So
yeah, you speak of cold weather. I mean, like I'm from the Bay Area, California. So like I'm used to like 65 to 70, like not much difference there. But now I'm here in Wisconsin for about the last 6-7 years, and we're still having crappy weather. Just looking outside, it's been gloomy, and I'm like, all right, when are we gonna get this warm weather? Because I don't like watching baseball while I'm like hearing there might be snow. Like there shouldn't be that.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up playing. Our high school season started in March every year, and March in Wisconsin is 20 degrees and snowing. So had a lot of snow games. Definitely pitched in the snow in college too. But luckily in professional baseball, I haven't had to do that yet. So
yeah, and I've had guys from Indiana. You're the first person I've had from Wisconsin, so shout out Wisconsin. And they tell me the same thing. Like it's so hard to produce talent. Although Indiana has recently produced a ton of talent when it comes to baseball, and I feel like Wisconsin has maybe not the best reputation for producing.
We have a few guys in the big leagues right now.
Yeah,
one of my really good friends, Ben Rortvedt, he and I played together growing up. He's with the Yankees now. He was in that Gary Sanchez trade to Minnesota. Gavin Lux with the Dodgers, Wisconsinite. Jared Kelenic, he's been a top
Alec
prospect
Marsh
for years. Alec Marsh, Jaron Kendall was a top prospect a few years ago. I think he's in Double A. I think he's still playing. So there's baseball talent in Wisconsin for sure, and it's taken some time for it to develop. But really, I mean, there's really good ball players there. It's just a question of getting recruited, getting seen, and all that stuff. So.
No, for sure. And you talked about those guys you play with. So how was your high school experience? Obviously, those guys you just listed all over the Wisconsin area, really good guys. Like, was your team good? Like, how was your experience?
No, we were not very good in high school. I played every position and hit in the 2-hole or the 3-hole. And that says a lot about how our high school team was, because I, was never going to play a position in college. We were not very good year in and year out, but we had a couple of good seasons while I was there. Never really went anywhere in terms of regionals or sectionals or anything like that, but good competition. There are good players on every team, but man, you see some of the high school teams from, I played with kids in college who were from, Harvard Westlake in California, and they had, Lucas Giolito and Jack Flaherty and Max Fried all on the same pitching staff. Like, you're never going to find that in Wisconsin.
No, not at all.
But the high level talent is as good as it is anywhere in the country.
No, for sure. So speaking of those guys that you mentioned, did you ever face Gavin Lux? Like what, or Kelenic?
I don't think I faced either of them. They were both a year younger than me. Rortvedt and I played against each other for years. I played with each other for years. So definitely faced him. Yeah, I mean, there's guys. Danny Jansen is a guy who's in the big leagues right now.
The Blue Jays? No.
He came through the same summer ball team as I did. I don't know if I've ever faced him, but yeah, I mean, there's, smatterings of talent, but it's not like, you face these guys, you see them around, you play against them in travel ball, but you may not pitch that day. Yeah, I mean, you can tell, like, Gavin Lux sticks out from the crowd for sure.
So, like, speaking of Gavin Lux, so he was just like the dude in Wisconsin then. Like, everyone knew like that was the guy who was getting drafted.
Yeah, I mean, you could see it coming. For sure, you could see it coming. And Kalenic got a lot of buzz early on
Mhm.
too. They're just athletic freaks for the state, at least on the baseball side, because a lot of the good athletes will go play football, they'll go play
Mhm.
basketball. Obviously, football is huge in Wisconsin, but yeah, I mean, getting to play against those guys, see those guys develop. Like, obviously, I don't have any direct connection to a lot of these guys. It's like I'm not friends with them per
Mhm.
se, but I feel some sort of connection to them or some sort
Yeah.
of camaraderie with them. Just there's not very many of us in pro ball right now.
Absolutely. Like you said, there's not a ton of you, so you got that connection. Yeah, Wisconsin is football. Indiana is known for basketball. Did you play other sports before you kind of stuck to baseball?
I played a little basketball in high school, but I remember getting dunked on my sophomore year, right at the end of my sophomore year of high school. Realized I wouldn't be able to do that to anybody, and I didn't really, I realized it just wasn't my sport at that point. So I focused on baseball after that. But yeah, growing up, I played all sorts of sports. Never played football though. Never really gave that a shot.
So you would say that dunk ended your basketball career, or your hopes of becoming something in
It was
basketball.
the sort of last straw, the straw that broke the camel's back. It was like I was always a scrappy, good rebounder, good defender, but really was not a good offensive player. Not tall enough, not fast enough, not you know the super athlete that a lot of the other guys were. And
Yeah.
the writing was on the wall for my basketball career, probably from the get go. But
Well, you found a career in baseball. Obviously, you got drafted. We'll jump into that later. So how was the high school process and then like the recruiting process? Obviously, you went to Harvard, academic scholarship. So you're, you're a very smart guy. So what was like the recruiting process, and were there like Big Ten colleges you were interested in at all?
yeah, the recruiting process was interesting. I started late. I wasn't really very good my first year of high school. Um, Pitched a fair amount, pitched on varsity a little bit, was up and down between JV and varsity my freshman year. Sophomore year had a good season, and one of the local travel ball coaches, the bigger program in the area, I had been talking to them for a few years and never really gave it a shot. It was expensive. My family was not in a position to go play $2,000 travel baseball.
Hmm.
But one of the coaches for that program really, I mean, took me under his wing, Greg Reinhardt, and basically gave me the opportunity to play high level travel baseball, even though I wasn't going to be able to afford it.
That's incredible.
So he sort of reached out. He said, "Look, like I know it's not financially feasible for you, but here's what we can do this for you. We can put you in a position to succeed. You put up, a smaller amount of money up front. We'll make this happen." And yeah, he put me in a position to be able to play college baseball, frankly. So that spring, I guess it was the spring of my junior high school year, I had my first coach come see me from the University of Cincinnati. That summer, I, found a little bit of velo. Was, touching 90, throwing in the upper 80s. And I wouldn't say I was like a big time recruit, but I had, here and there, about a dozen Division I offers. Not really any from Big Ten schools. Michigan, I was talking to them for a little while, but that fizzled out. And
Would your parents have been upset, or your family had you gone to like a Michigan or Michigan State just being from Wisconsin, or no?
not at
No.
all. No, not at all. I mean, my family's not originally from Wisconsin. They
Oh,
moved
okay.
there. But yeah, I mean, there were schools that I was talking to all around the country, but I didn't go to college thinking I was going to play professional baseball. That was totally not on my radar. I wanted to go to a place that I felt like I was going to get a good education. I was going to have a good experience. And when Harvard called, frankly, I sort of wrote them off at first. Being a public school kid from Wisconsin, it's not something you see yourself doing.
Mhm.
But it was when I went out there for a visit, it was great. The coaching staff was awesome. Yeah, and there was some serendipity to it too. My dad and I were this will tell you a little bit about my background, but we instead of kids go on these college tours before their college process,
Right.
my dad and I took a mega bus we went from Durham. So Duke had recruited me a little bit. So we went from Durham to DC, saw some schools in DC to New York, all on a megabus, crashing on like family friends' couches. And then New York, we were going to go to Providence to go see Brown, and they had recruited me. We actually missed our bus, and we had a family friend invite us to come up to Boston. And I'd been in touch with the coaches at Harvard, but hadn't really scheduled anything there. So we missed the bus, ended up in Boston, went over to see the campus, loved it, went back for an official visit in September of my senior year, and then committed like 48 hours later.
Wow. Okay. So what was it that kind of just drew you to Harvard? I mean, was it obviously the academics? Like, we know what that is.
Yeah.
I don't know a ton about Ivy League like baseball. Like, was their team pretty good or?
So I mean, it's Division I baseball. They had some good players. The coaches were great, really. I mean, the coaches were. When I was getting recruited, like they were, invested clearly, had a lot of thoughts about how they were going to use me and how they were going to develop me as a ball player. And then, yeah, I mean, it's hard to say no to a place like Harvard. The opportunities that it's given me, even in the last, 4 or 5 years of my life, have been incredible. And yeah, the fact, I mean, it was one of those things that just was not on my radar for a long time. And the fact that it ended up, working out the way it did is pretty unbelievable to me in hindsight. So
yeah, I mean, sometimes things just kind of fall into place the way they're meant to be. And you don't even plan it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I feel really lucky. It was an incredible experience for me. And yeah, definitely loved my 3 years there.
Yeah, and you mentioned 3 years you got drafted. So who was your guys' biggest rival, like baseball wise, when it comes to the Ivy League?
I mean, it's Yale, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing, that Harvard-Yale rivalry is real. But also every year, the last series of the year we would play, every year we played the same conference schedule, and we'd play Dartmouth the last weekend of the year every year. So those two, we play Yale sort of earlier on, and then we play Dartmouth right at the end. And those two were always the most fun series of the year, for sure.
Did they ever get a little chippy between the two teams or no?
I don't think so. We had some games with Dartmouth that were like, I mean, we played a game that was like 19-17 with like 14 home runs or something crazy, and like it was a 12-inning game, and there were tensions that were high for sure. Yeah. But no, I wouldn't say that anything really ever got chippy, because we just weren't. If we were in contention for an Ivy League championship when I was there, like late in the season, I think it would have gotten chippier, but we were not very good my 3 years there. So,
well, I mean,
sort of middle of the pack.
Okay, that's fair. So when did you switch from starting to relief pitching, and like how did that conversation go?
The minute I got drafted, I asked, I said, "Hey, what's your plan for me?" And they're like, "You're going to be in the bullpen." So from then on, it's just been I've been in the bullpen ever since.
So in college, were you mostly a starter then?
I never pitched out of the bullpen. Well, I guess I pitched out of the bullpen my freshman year of college, but beyond that, I started every game after that.
Okay. So let's talk about the Northwoods Leagues. Obviously, you're from Madison. You play for the Mallards, which is like your backyard. How was that experience pitching for them in 16 and 17, playing for a team like your hometown team, although obviously it's not major league, but it's still really cool to come back and be like that hometown kid playing here?
Yeah, no, I loved it. Every minute, it was like kind of surreal to me, because I grew up watching those games. And it was my first time getting to pitch in front of a packed stadium, right? They draw 8,000 fans pretty regularly. So, throwing a Friday night game at the Duck Pond was really a cool experience. I loved it. Was pitching well that summer. So yeah, can't ask for a whole lot more. You're pitching in your hometown in front of a ton of fans. And yeah, you're getting to, play baseball in a place that you love. So.
Yeah, and you pitch well, like you said, 1.54 ERA and about 53 innings. That'll work. That kind of propelled your career. Oh, I guess you also pitched summer league, and like in DC, right, or whatever.
Yeah, so I pitched the year before, but that was more of a developmental.
Okay.
I went to the Northwoods really thinking that I could show something. I put a lot of it together towards the end of my sophomore season in college. I had a couple of good starts to end the year, and I really felt confident going into the summer. So yeah, went to Madison, pitched my butt off there, went to the All-Star game, they had a big league showcase there with a bunch of major league scouts, got to pitch there, was throwing well, and was able to carry that success into my junior year. A number of teams came and watched me throw, but frankly, around the draft, and really the months leading up to the draft, I heard from 3 teams. I heard from what were then the Indians, the Rockies, and it was just, I didn't expect anything to happen in the draft. I was sort of cautiously optimistic, but did not hear from the Rays a single time that whole draft process.
So you didn't have a big draft party, you're saying?
No, so actually I was I knew I wasn't going to get drafted the first day of the draft or the second day, probably. I was, hopeful, but not
right.
counting on anything. The third day of the draft, I was like, well, I was, at that time, my dad was living in New York City, and he was renting a room from, some folks in Brooklyn. So he had one room, and I was sleeping on the floor of his room. So he was on the bed, I was on the floor for the week leading up to the draft. And, we were talking about it a little bit, and it was like, yeah, it could happen. If it happens, that'd be awesome. But I was signed to go play in the Cape that summer. I was pretty, it was in a good place, but I went out to lunch with my aunt and uncle. They invited me out because they were like, oh, it's draft time. Like, even if you don't get drafted, let's just, take him out to lunch. And in that, I was sort of distracted at this lunch. But one of my best friends in college, Noah Zavalas, who's with the Brewers now.
Yeah.
I was keeping an eye on the draft tracker, and he gets drafted in the 18th round. And so, I'm psyched for him. I'm texting him. I'm like, whatever. And then my phone starts ringing 2 minutes after I send the message. And yeah, we were right by Central Park. So I answer the phone. The Rays called me saying, congratulations, you're a Tampa Bay Ray. And I went for a walk in Central Park and had to sort of
reflect
check myself to think I couldn't believe it was real. But yeah, that was my draft story. And I think, every minor leaguer I'm sure you've talked to has their own story of it. But yeah, I'll never forget that moment. I just sat down on a rock in Central Park and was like, this is real. This is happening.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of guys who've been drafted. It's funny though, like a majority of them do other things. A lot of them don't have draft parties because unless you're going high, like it's kind of almost because it's you don't want that like letdown of like, sorry guys, come back tomorrow kind of thing,
That night we got some family together in the city.
Yeah.
There's a place called Foley's in New York City that I think is closed, but it's this awesome baseball bar. It's like a totally dedicated baseball fan. Memorabilia all over the place. And I think it closed down, which is a huge loss for the city of New York. But we got together there with, a dozen or so family friends who were in the city and celebrated that night. So
yeah, and you got drafted by the Rays, who obviously develop talent. They have the pitching specifically. Evan Reeford, I don't know if you know, I'm sure he pitches. I think he's in Double-A with you.
Yeah, Evan and I got to know each other in spring training for sure.
Yeah. So he was with the Brewers, traded to the Rays. I texted him as soon as that happened, like, you know what, like that's a good move for you because like if the Rays are trading for you, they're seeing something in you. And he throws pretty hard. He's a really good pitcher. I think he'll do well there. But like they said, they have a really good eye for pitching. So just being able to get traded or signed to the Rays or drafted by the Rays, was that kind of in your back of your mind, knowing that like they have a ton of good pitching? And I mean, they have some hard throwers, but they also have some kind of like funky, not so hard throwers, and they do a really good job of like utilizing their bullpen, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely knew the reputation of the Rays. When you're in the draft process, you don't have a choice where you're going to go.
Yeah.
So for me, like I couldn't get attached to one organization or another. I was just grateful that I got picked. But yeah, I was excited when it was the Rays, and I've had really good experience with the organization's player development. I can't say a bad thing about the way they develop pitchers in the Rays organization. I've said lots of things about the system of minor league baseball at various times.
Absolutely. And we'll get into that.
But the way the Rays, in terms of their player development and the coaching staff that they have, is like, I've never had better coaches in my life. And they really do like take seriously the fact that if you have good people, you're going to develop good players.
Mm-hmm.
And they bring in a lot of good people, and you can see the results.
Yeah. Unfortunately, how cool would that have been if the Brewers had drafted you, though? Like,
yeah, I mean, I've thought about it. It would be really cool. Would have loved to be a Milwaukee Brewer, but I don't. Hindsight, never gonna even think about that, because
no, of course, it's kind of move forward. I'm assuming you were a big Brewers fan,
to get picked, and so excited to start my career. It couldn't have mattered less to me.
Absolutely, and that's exactly the mindset to have. But I'm assuming you were a big Brewers fan, or unless you were a Cubs fan.
I grew up a Cubs fan, actually.
Oh boy,
my dad is from Chicago originally, so I grew up.
Got you. All right. Well, I won't hold it against you. I grew up an A's fan. I've kind of the Brewers are my National League team. I don't even want to talk about Oakland and their and what they do with their minor leaguers. I'm sure you saw the picture that was kind of traveling around the internet with the bag of sandwich, whatever.
I know all about it.
Yep. So talking about your time with the Rays, you're obviously now a reliever. What are some adjustments that you maybe made going from college to now the pros?
It was a pretty natural transition, I think. The biggest thing is the length of the season. You can't prepare for that. My first full season in 19 was a wake-up call for sure. How to take care of your body, how to, be in a position to succeed. And I've had some nagging injuries since then. And I clearly that's been a challenge for sure that I need to overcome. But the style of baseball is just a lot cleaner in professional baseball. Hitters have a better approach. They are more aggressive in a lot of ways than college hitters. College hitters, at least in the Northeast, are patient, lengthy plate appearances. Well, the first thing I noticed in pro ball is that hitters will punish you if you make a mistake, but you can also toy with hitters in professional baseball a little bit better than you can in college, because every professional hitter comes into an at-bat with a plan. And if you do something that throws them off their plan, you can actually get an advantage. Whereas in college, a lot of hitters are just trying to see the ball and hit it.
Yeah.
So the approaches are definitely different in pro ball. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, I think playing in the Northwoods is a good preparation for what pro ball is like, in terms of wood bats, quality gameplay. So I wouldn't say there was a crazy transition. I mean, obviously moving to the bullpen is a different beast, but it's something that was pretty natural for me. Felt really comfortable out of the bullpen from the get-go.
Moving to the bullpen, do you start your preparation differently? Because obviously you don't know when you're going to go into the game versus a starter. You have that rigid, you're going every fifth day.
Yeah, I mean, it was a transition, and you figure out the things that work, but really it was a natural one for me. I felt like, the adrenaline you get in the bullpen is way different than you get as a starter. It is so fun. Nothing is more fun in baseball. Starting a game is great. Nothing is more fun in baseball than closing. To shut the door with a 1-run lead in the 9th inning is way more fun than anything a starter ever gets to do. So, except maybe throw a complete game. But yeah, I loved the move to the bullpen, and I've loved it really without looking back since then.
That's fair. So let's talk about the minor leagues. Did anything prepare you? We hear the stories. I've talked to guys for Division I, they're flying nice plane rides, nice hotels, perfect accommodations, and then they're right in the minor leagues where it's just the complete opposite. What was your first initial reaction to that minor league life?
The story I always tell, my first day in pro ball, actually my first professional outing in pro ball, I pitched, I guess it was my first outing at home in pro ball, because we were on the road for my first ever appearance. But back at home, I pitch, it's it's really fun. I'm having a great time. I'm on a professional mound. It's like one of the greatest moments of my life. I go home. I'm sleeping in an 8x12 room with 2 beds in it. The bed on the right is a teammate of mine who had played there the year before. So he got the bed. I got the cot, which was a metal spring-loaded cot that was not even a twin bed size. It was smaller than a twin bed. And in the middle of the night, at first I've been woken up by my roommate snoring. But the second time I woke up, the bed had collapsed onto the floor. So I'm sleeping on a collapsed cot on the floor. And just, I mean, like the sort of dichotomy of you're pitching under the lights in front of fans, you're a professional athlete, you go home, you're sleeping on a cot that collapses in the middle of the night on the floor. It's like you almost couldn't write a better, first impression of baseball. Obviously, the baseball part of professional baseball is incredible. I wouldn't trade these experiences for anything in the world. The life of a professional baseball player is exhausting. It is draining. It's economically not even really viable as a job. You watch guys. I mean, that was the first time in my career that I've watched as players, like, they're struggling to figure out how they're going to pay their monthly cell phone bill. Like they're struggling to figure out, there's players who you were expected to send money to their families every month. So they're budgeting, our first paychecks that year were $550 for 2 weeks of work. They're budgeting, and that's, you lose taxes. So it was about $470, and then you pay clubhouse dues. So you're looking at like maybe $410 to last you 2 weeks.
You think about Latin guys too, who give so much of their money back to their families.
That's what I'm saying. So players are sending money home to their families, and you're looking at guys who are living on like $15, $20 a day. That includes bills. That includes rent for a lot of players. That includes gas money. That includes everything a real adult human being pays for, on a salary that's like, we're at the ballpark 60 plus hours a week, travel on top of that, like 70 hours a week. And we're making, at that point, we were making, 250 a week. Now we're making more than that. I'm making, much, much higher salary than that. I'm making, right now I'm on the AA roster making 600 a week, which is far more livable. But at the same time, I'm 25 years old and have a lot more life expenses than I did when I was 21. And so even, my $600 a week salary doesn't go as far as I want it to. And it's $600 a week for half the year still only makes me a little over $12,000.
Yeah, no, it's insane. Like just to think about and you, like what you're saying, you go from the lights, then now you're on a cot that breaks. You could barely afford this. And I've talked to guys who have told me that they've had friends or teammates who say, look, I want to keep playing, but I can't because I literally can't afford to play. I can't afford to be a husband, to be a father, and a baseball player, all while under this salary, of below poverty level. And it's really like sad to hear these individual stories, because sometimes we don't really think about. I feel like as fans, we see the major league, we see the guys on the big league roster. We don't see the grind, the hustle, the tears that get you from point A to point B, which is the majors. And I think, what is it, 11%, 10% make it?
Yep, it's about 10%. And really, I mean, it's disappointing as a person who loves baseball. Like, I live and breathe baseball. I grew up my whole life wanting to be a baseball player, and I get to do it, right? I'm like the luckiest guy in the world. But the fact that baseball can't treat its players like human beings is disappointing for somebody who loves the game, because I want to love the game for everything the game is. But right now, as I see firsthand, players who are skipping meals, who are working like overnight shifts in the offseason, who literally have to quit baseball, who have to give up on their dream because they can't afford to put food on the table for their family. Like, that's wrong. That's wrong if you have ever been to a baseball game. If you've never watched baseball, it's wrong to treat a human being like that. But if you watch baseball and you love baseball, you should be outraged. You should be pissed off. You should be angry, because it's taking something beautiful, something really, really beautiful like the game of baseball, and just spitting on it, kicking dirt on it. I mean, it's like if you want baseball to be the sport that it can be, a sport that people love, people enjoy, people want to celebrate as a game, you have to pay your workers fairly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's true in any industry, right? Like in acting, in music, like pay artists fairly, pay your workers fairly. But like in minor league baseball, to me as a ball player and to any fan, it should just be disappointing. It should
Mm-hmm.
be really disappointing.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like I said, like that's what this podcast that I have, I pretty much only talk to minor leaguers. Eventually they'll be big leaguers, and I'll have them on again. But like I like to be able to, I'm on Twitter, my bio, like minor league hype man. I like to hype up these guys, whether they make it, whether they don't, whether they were high draft picks, whether they were signed as an undrafted free agent. I have them on my podcast. I hype them up. I'll message them whenever they have a good game. Because I feel like so many of them are going through this, and like without having that support, which I love about more than baseball, minor league advocates, adopt a minor leaguer. Now there are a couple of organizations kind of highlighting the need to not only like support them financially, but sometimes almost like mentally or emotionally, just kind of be there, a friend, be a supportive person for them. Because there are guys who leave their home states, they're playing in a different city, small towns, Beloit, Wisconsin, and they don't have.
I mean, it's hard for sure for a ball
Yeah.
player, even in my position, right? I'm away from home. I'm in a new place, but try being a ball player who doesn't speak the language, right?
Sure.
Try being a ball player who's never been in the United States before. Try being a ball player who, is stuck in the middle of Kentucky where nobody in the entire town speaks Spanish, and you're trying to go get groceries from the grocery store. You're trying to go order pizza. You're trying to go get a meal at a restaurant, right? Like a lot of what gets talked about in baseball is the experience of, a white American ball player.
Mm-hmm.
50% of the minor leagues are not that.
Yeah. Puerto
You're
Rico,
dealing with,
Dominican,
players from
everything.
all over the world, Venezuela, Dominican
Yep.
Republic, Colombia, Mexico, players, we work with one of our ambassadors in More Than Baseball. He's an Italian ball player, right? He came to the U.S. for the first time from Italy. Like the baseball experience it's a multifaceted one. And for players coming from those backgrounds, it can be even like doubly or triply as challenging.
Mm-hmm.
And you're still getting paid a poverty level wage, right? There's no there's no respite from the challenges. And so, yeah, the 3-4 hours that you're on the baseball field are often the break from the stresses of life as a minor leaguer.
Yeah. So speaking of these random cities, like, is there a town that you've gone to where you get off the bus, if the bus doesn't break down, and you look around, you're like, where am I? Like, I'm in the middle of nowhere.
There was a team in the Penn League in Mahoning Valley, Ohio, and the ballpark is in it was at that point the Indians, the Guardians low A or short season A affiliate. The ballpark's in the back corner of a mall parking lot. It's literally like you have a mall, and in the back corner of the mall, like backed up against the little woods at the back of the mall, there's a baseball park. It was a great stadium, but it was like, where the hell am I?
Yeah.
There, we were staying at that road trip. We were staying in a Days Inn in like I don't even know, Mentor, Ohio, I think is the closest town. We're staying at Days Inn. The heat or the air conditioning broke while we were there. So it was like 95 degrees in the hotel. And like, we're playing in a mall parking lot. And it's like, what the hell, man? Like,
I love hearing these stories because they ask us, and I get Beloit, Wisconsin is the one I get a lot on, and like ever since they got
a tough place. It's a tough
Did you
place.
ever play there? Like before they got
I
the
never
new stadium?
did. Okay. I was in Bowling Green in 2018 when they were still in the Midwest League. But I was only there for 6 weeks, and we played pretty much exclusively in Michigan when I was there.
Yeah. No, yeah. I've taught the guys, and like now that they've had a new stadium, like I went there just 2 weeks ago. It's beautiful. Like they don't get a ton of fans. Like it's kind of bare there, but the stadium is really nice. Previously, like in minor league baseball, I was like, if you guys don't get a new stadium, we're taking this team
in high school. In high school, I pitched on that field. And actually, that's the closest I've ever been to throwing a no-hitter was on that field. I threw a 7-inning 1-hitter, and the hit I gave up in the first inning bounced off my shortstop's glove. So that's my memory of the old Beloit field. But.
Yeah. Have you ever had any interesting fan interactions? I love asking this question because I've had guys ask me, like, I've had kids ask me to sign their foreheads, or I've had guys meet me on the bus and ask me to sign their autograph, and they have no idea who I even am. Like, do you have any?
Yeah, I mean, I get that all the time, right? Like, they'll be like, "Oh, can I get your autograph? Can I get your autograph?" I'm like, "Who's my name? What's my name?" And they're like, you know. There's definitely, I mean, it's one of the best parts about being a ball player is some of the interactions with fans. Kids are I mean, it's fun to have kids at games. It's really fun to watch, because I went to a couple of Beloit games when I was a kid, right? I went to Mallards games when I was a kid, and like, those are college guys that I was like, this is, these are my heroes.
Ever, yeah.
So yeah, no, I definitely love getting those interactions. Specific interactions, I remember there's a kid in last summer when I was in Tennessee. We're playing the Smokies, and there's this kid with a bright red mullet, like yelling out down into the bullpen at us. Oh no, we were in Birmingham. We weren't in Tennessee.
Okay.
I don't know, something like that. It was either in Tennessee or Birmingham. And this kid is yelling down, and he's got this big old red mullet and a big like a thick Southern drawl. And he's like, somebody was asking him on our team, like, "Oh, what's your name?" And he's like, "They call me the Red Waterfall," because of his like bright red mullet down the back of his head. And anyway, we threw that kid a ball. He was hilarious. But yeah, I mean, there's if a kid at minor league baseball, or a parent of a kid who's at a minor league baseball game is listening to this podcast, tell your kid to stop asking for a baseball for the sake of every other minor league baseball player. Stop asking for baseballs.
Yeah, like, I mean, I've had I was talking to Zach Britton, who's drafted by the Blue Jays. He's telling me that he gets so many messages asking for bats, and he's like, "Dude, I don't have that many bats to give away. I can't just give out all my bats."
Well, that's the other thing is, like, people will ask, "Let me get your glove." Like, I'm sure you get 1,000 gloves. Like, no, dude, I get a glove every 2 years, and like, if I don't have my glove, I'm spending $350, which I don't have on a new glove. It's like, "Can I get your cleats?" Like, no, I have 4 pairs of cleats for the whole season. Like, don't ask me for equipment. I don't have any to give you. And minor league players pay for their own equipment, right? Like, it's not like we're getting free stuff unless you're a prospect or a high round pick. You're not getting free stuff. You're paying for your bats, you're paying for your cleats, you're paying for your gloves, you're paying for everything you need to play baseball. So it's funny, we're weaving together, like, there's all these great parts about baseball, but right alongside it is this, like, all the BS that can happen as a minor league baseball player.
Yeah, so let's talk about then more than baseball. Like, what went into the idea to start that, and like, how has the process going? And is there like, are you getting like negative pushback at all, by like being a minor leaguer, like from the actual organization, the Rays? Like, what is that? How's that all coming about?
Yeah, so I'll start with the organization. Sure. Every story that I'm telling you is part of the reason that we started More Than Baseball, right? Like, every kind of bush league crap that a minor league player deals with, that's why we started More Than Baseball, is to make sure that stuff ends, and that there's organizations out there and people out there that players can turn to. So More Than Baseball started, we started talking about it, me and Slade and Jeremy, the 2 other co-founders, in 2018, founded the organization officially in 2019, and really tried to build an organization that picks up where teams have failed ball players. So teams have failed ball players aren't paid enough. Ball players aren't given support off the field. Ball players don't have any options for, if they need to work in the offseason, the team doesn't help with that. If they need to train in the offseason, the team doesn't help with that. If they need, equipment discounts or nutrition or basic support, team doesn't provide that. We've provided players with professional development opportunities. We've provided players with financial guidance opportunities. We provided players with, English classes if they want them. We provided players with immigration and visa assistance. And we provided, during the pandemic, we provided $1.3 million in direct financial assistance to minor league ball players. So really, I mean, we see ourselves as like the support network that minor league baseball players should already have. And that's part of the reason that we've taken such a strong stance on, the living wage stuff, is that it's not our damn job to get minor leaguers the support that they need financially. Teams should be paying players enough for their work, right? It's great that we've been able to treat some of the symptoms of some of the worker mistreatment that happens in minor league baseball, but fundamentally the system needs to change,
Right.
and teams need to step up, and teams need to pay their players a fair wage, a living wage, a wage that allows them to reach their potential as athletes. So yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff that we do is sort of like nice NGO work, and we're, able to support ball players and provide them with assistance. And that's still something that we continue to do, and we will do until, inevitable, like until the system picks up the stuff that ball players need. We're going to continue to support ball players in all of those ways. But we're also in a position to push for changes to that system. And that's where the op-ed that I wrote came out of, in the Washington Post recently. That's where our push for a $35,000 minimum salary for minor league players came out of. All the stuff that we have going on with the living wage. The system needs to change. And in terms of pushback, I've not received any pushback from the team yet. I'm sure it'll come. I'm ruffling feathers for sure, with some of the living wage stuff and some of the sort of the unfair labor practices stuff. But I will say that like 95% of baseball agrees. There's really not very many people in baseball. I would say more than 95%. Player development staff want players to be paid more. Coaches want players to be paid more. Ball players, both at the major league and minor league level, want players to be paid more. You have people in the analytics department that realize that players need to be paid more to develop better as baseball players. Nutritionists, strength and conditioning staff, like everybody around baseball knows that it's BS that minor league players are paid such low wages. The people writing the checks are the only people that don't want minor league players paid a fair wage. Like that's it. And so those people, we have, say there's 6,000 minor league players. There's probably 4,000 or 5,000 employees around minor league baseball, around, player development and all that kind of stuff. You've got 10, 12,000 people versus 30 owners. That's what we're talking about in terms of numbers. And like, I maybe I'll get pushback, but I know the pushback is not coming from the people who are my coaches, the people who are my, the people I interact with on a day-to-day basis. It's going to come from the owners, the people in the front office. And that's fine. I'm comfortable with them criticizing me because they're wrong. Like if that's where the criticism comes from, great. Awesome. I love it.
Yeah. And I know I can delete this also if you don't answer this, but is there ever a fear of like the major league club being like, look, like we're not gonna advance you too much just based off like all the feathers that you are ruffling up? Is that ever a fear like to you?
I'm in a position in my career where I think I'm a good enough baseball player to deserve a spot regardless of what I'm saying. But also I'm in a position of privilege compared to a lot of minor league baseball players, right? I have a great college degree. I graduated actually this past off season. I finished my
congrats, by the way.
Thank you. And so I'm in a position where like I will have job opportunities after my baseball career is over. I will have places that I can turn to that a lot of players don't have. And so sure, yeah, I'm scared. Definitely. I don't want blowback from this stuff. But it's better that fall on a player like me than a player that doesn't have some of the advantages that I have, right? And so when I'm speaking out, my view is I'm not sharing an experience that's unique to me, right? I'm sharing an experience that every damn player in the minor leagues has experienced. And I'm just in a position where I can share that in a more comfortable way than a lot of players. Because I've said this before on podcasts and interviews. I have 500, 600 quotes from minor league players who all want to remain anonymous, right? And they're telling me, I want to speak out on this stuff, but I don't want to lose my opportunity. I don't want to lose my one shot at, a major league career. And I frankly can't blame them for that.
Yeah.
But I will say that if all 600 of them spoke out, they're not going to fire all of you.
Right.
So yeah, I'm taking a risk for sure, speaking out, but my sense and my calculation is that, first of all, enough people agree with me that I'm not really that scared of speaking out. And the other side of it too is that I'm in a position to speak out. And if I don't do it, somebody else might put themselves at risk in a position where, they're in much higher risk than I am. And so, I want other players to speak out. I want players to use their voices. And every time players have used their voices, there's been significant change in the sport. And I'm hoping over the next few months that will continue to change, right? Players will continue to use their voices. We'll work together as a collective group of ball players to make change happen in the minor leagues. And so, yeah, hopefully my words are a catalyst for others.
Yeah. You make some great points. Obviously, the fear of speaking out without wanting to risk potentially their career. I was reading some of the comments from your op-ed out of curiosity, because I just knew there were going to be some comments that kind of just frustrated me. And I'm sure you probably got this as well, or maybe some have told you. Some have said it's just a game. It's unnecessary. Find something productive, or suck it up. Or a lot of people have jobs that are fun, discussing, and no possibility of advancement. Is that fair? No. So I'm not saying these to like discourage you, but just to kind of highlight the fact that there's such a need for organizations like More Than Baseball to educate not just minor leaguers, but even the fans who watch these guys, that there is a need. And yeah, it's just a game, but at the same time, that gives no right.
So first of all, my response to it's just a game. If you've never played baseball, if you can't hit my fastball, zip it.
Yeah.
That's it. If you can hit my fastball, here's my response to you. Baseball is a sport that brings in an enormous amount of money. It's one of the biggest sports are one of the biggest industries in the United States. It's almost an $11 billion industry. Teams have minor league baseball teams, not because they bring in money as minor league baseball teams, but because they hold value to the organization. Every single player that makes it to the major leagues out of a farm system is a massive windfall for an organization. The Rays pay basically no money to their ball players at the major league level and are one of the best teams in baseball every year because they develop good players. That's how economically valuable a farm system is. And so teams, it's simply like they will have more players in their system because it's an economically valuable thing for them to do. Whether or not players are paid a living wage or not, right? Teams are going to have players in their system because it's valuable to the teams. Branch Rickey, when the minor league system first started in the 60s, the Cardinals, under Branch Rickey's leadership, bought up 25 minor league teams. No, not 25. That's an exaggeration. But they bought up almost a dozen minor league teams, right? They owned the contracts to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of players before anybody else was doing it, right? Other teams were, they had basically minor leagues were independent. Teams didn't own teams. There was no affiliations. Branch Rickey started a farm system of Cardinals players in the minor leagues. The Cardinals were the best team in baseball for the next 12 years. They won pennant after pennant after pennant after pennant after pennant under that leadership. Their winning percentage over the 15 years after that was like 630, 640, right? Like they're winning far more than any other team in baseball. And they're doing that on the back of a farm system. And that tells you a little bit about how valuable a farm system is to a Major League Baseball team. So minor league baseball is not like, it's not some like, it's not a charity case. They're not just paying players for shits. Minor league baseball players are the top tiny percent of baseball players in the entire world, right? Like these are some of the best athletes you will ever meet, you'll ever see. The quality of baseball at the minor leagues is not that far off from what it is at the major league level. And frankly, like all of these arguments tell me that minor league baseball is an economically valuable thing for Major League Baseball that they should be investing money into. And so in terms of like, get a real job, like, okay, stop watching baseball. Don't consume any baseball related media.
Exactly.
Stop supporting major league teams. Like cut down the bottom line of a $10-11 billion industry if you don't want players to be treated fairly. But frankly, minor league players are getting such a tiny share of the pie as it stands right now that like a marginal increase to a living wage is nobody's going to notice it at the major league level. it would cost the average major league team $5 million a year to pay their players a living wage. The San Diego Padres just agreed to this deal with Motorola to put a logo on their jersey for $10 million a year. Okay. So the Padres are still going to make money off this logo deal if they paid their minor leaguers a living wage. And so, like, that's the sort of accounting we're talking about here. It's not like we're going to bankrupt major league teams by paying players a living wage. No. Teams are continuing to make more and more and more and more and more money. Minor league player salaries have not really increased at all since the 70s in terms of real wages. In fact, they've decreased. In the 70s, a player's salary is worth about $20,000 in today's dollars. A minor league player's average salary this year is like around $10,000. So player salaries have decreased over the last 30 years. Baseball has become exponentially more profitable. And yet minor league share of the pie has not changed whatsoever.
Yeah.
And so it's simply like I want to bash people over the head with all these facts every time they tell me something like that, because it's like, and the other side of this too is that a person who loves what they do shouldn't be paid any less than a person who hates what they do. It's not some like contest to see how much you hate your job. It's like, if you like your job, you should still get paid fairly for your time, regardless of what you're doing. Whether you're, a professor at a university who loves research, you should be paid fairly for your research. Whether you're you work for a production company or an animator, and there's lots of great stories about the animators union in California demanding better wages, and people are making these same arguments against them. If you're, an air traffic controller, right? Like, and you love planes and that's your dream job, you should still get paid fairly. And so, I mean, a lot of these arguments are BS. A lot of them are people not fully understanding the way the system works. But at the end of the day, like, minor league baseball is an economically valuable thing for Major League Baseball. And yet they're still able to pay their players a poverty level wage because of, there's a lot of legal exemptions that they have too. We can talk about those, but they've just like conned themselves into a system that allows them to pay their players poverty level wages.
Yeah, and it's frustrating to see. And like you said, there's lots of guys who give up on their careers, who could have been, we don't know, how their story would have ended, because of this whole scenario and situation that's going on.
And it's not just players who have given up their careers. It's players that they can't afford to train in the off season, right? We've been posting some quotes on our Instagram and on Twitter over the last few days from players. And one of the common themes that you'll see in these quotes is that players feel like they're not paid enough right now to maximize their development and their potential as baseball players. And that is just dumb. If you're a Major League Baseball team, what the hell are you doing not paying your players enough to train in the off season? If you want to develop your players better, you should make sure that your players are training so that they can develop as professional athletes. It is so stupid to me that a team would decide, we're not going to pay our players enough to train in the off season. You're going to have a guy working at a Planet Fitness. He's going to work out at a Planet Fitness, go throw in a high school gym and go work 40-hour-a-week shifts at a warehouse, and maybe, get hurt doing manual labor, get hurt in construction work, get hurt doing something else, and not trained sufficiently to be a good baseball player. They're leaving a lot on the table in terms of player development by paying players.
Yeah, like I've talked to guys who've been in construction over the offseason, teachers. I know a couple who do like substitute teachers because that's a good job that they can kind of plug and play kind of
flexible
thing.
Hours,
flexible hours, coaching. I know Evan, I mentioned he did like furniture, furniture building or something along the lines of that. And they're taking all this time away from training, and instead of training, they're working these 40, 60 hours a week, just try to make their dreams a reality.
Yeah. I mean, my view is no professional athlete should have to have a side hustle to be a professional athlete, period.
Yeah. So let's end on this. Where do you want to see, from, I know, so almost the middle of the year, like this through this season, like what is your goal for, yourself and then, for the organization?
Yeah, I mean, myself, really, frankly, I want to get healthy. I want to be back on the field. I miss it so much. I really haven't pitched, in at a level like AA. I haven't pitched competitively almost in a year. I went down last summer in June, early June, and didn't get back by the end of the year. I was up and down with various injuries, and really starting off the season with an injury was disappointing. So I really just want to get back on the field. I'm confident that, whenever I'm back on the field, I'll, have a good season. But to me, that even the performance, like, it will come, but I just want to be back in the field and healthy. And I, personally, like, I'm in the Rays organization. So if I'm healthy by September, I'm going to get to pitch in the playoffs and whatever level I'm at, because all of our teams are winning. And it is minor league playoffs, and that's a little silly. Actually, they might have actually nixed minor league playoffs. That might be one of the changes they made over the last couple of years. So I might be talking out of my, I'd be talking out of thin air, because I might not actually get playoffs anymore. Which is like my favorite time of year.
Or a bag of chips.
Yeah, no, that actually pisses me off a lot. I loved winning a championship in 2018. I loved we won the Fall League championship in 2019. Something I look forward to. So if they really did do that, that pisses me off. But
to be determined, I guess we'll find out.
I want to go win baseball games. I want to go, pitch in a competitive environment. I want to go pitch under the lights again. So that's my goal for me. For the organization, I want to see changes in minor league baseball, and I want to see them now. I want to see players be paid fair wages. I want to see changes to the contract system. I want to see players organizing as ball players around these issues and, like, really beginning to speak out on stuff. Like, I'm under a 7-year contract. I'm going to be under contract till I'm 28 years old. As a 28-year-old, you're basically dead to a front office, right? Like, you might as well be 40. And so there's stuff in minor league baseball that just should not stand, and players shouldn't be standing for it. So yeah, I mean, as a goal for more than baseball, for sure, I want to continue to see the organization grow. I want to continue to provide high quality support to ball players, and I want to continue to push for changes. As a baseball player, I want to see my fellow players standing up and starting to speak out on this stuff. It's way past time. And every time guys speak out, every time we work together, things change. The housing stuff, a number of players spoke out about that last year. And guess what? Major League Baseball is providing housing. Yeah, they screwed up the system. It doesn't work as well as we wanted it to, but it's still, a net positive for minor league players. Nutrition, right? Like the A's, when they serve their players that crap, guess what happened? They fired the caterer. They spent the money. They paid for a good caterer for the rest of the season, right? Like, players speaking out, teams don't want you to do it because it makes them actually have to invest in their minor league players, but it works. And we've seen serious changes happen when guys, take a stand and work together to create change.
Yeah, no, I know a couple guys in the Oakland organization. I've had them on. I'm gonna have, and I'm having some on in the future. But yeah, and like I said, I grew up an A's fan, so just to see that, it was like disappointing, not only as like a fan, but as like a human, just seeing kind of the things that was going on over there. Well, hey, I want to thank you for coming on. Tell us where we can find you on social, your the organization, their socials, and where we can find you.
Yeah, first and foremost, More Than Baseball is morethanbaseball.org, at MTB_ORG on Twitter and Instagram. Maybe we'll have a TikTok presence soon. Just watch out. But
I've been trying to crack that. I still haven't been able to.
And I'm at S Rosenblum-Larson on Instagram, at SimonRL18 on Twitter. Just look up my name. You'll find me. But yeah, no, super happy to jump on. This is great. It's been a lot of fun, especially a fellow Wisconsinite.
Yeah. I mean, transplant, but still, I'm here.
No, you're here. It's like, if you're in Wisconsin, you count, man. We'll count all the people we can get. So.
And this off season, we'll have to get together and do something, like whether it's Mallards game. I guess it wouldn't be Mallards in the summer, but we'll figure something out. We'll throw.
I'll be back
together.
Go throw snowballs. Absolutely.
Yeah, do a snowball fight. That'd be pretty sweet. All right. Hey, well, you have a great rest of your night, and hopefully everything kind of goes smooth with your injury, and we can get you throwing back again.
Thank you, man. It's been fun.
Appreciate it.